What Laurent Mekies discovered on Verstappen's car in Baku could change the entire future of Red Bull. Are we facing the beginning of an unexpected technical crisis? Stay tuned, because what was revealed in free practice for the Azerbaijan GP left more than a few people in the paddock in shock. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you think Red Bull will be able to maintain its dominance after this discovery? And the key question is, what does what Mekies found on the RB21 really mean, and how does it affect Verstappen in his fight for the championship? Stay tuned until the end, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Baku is no ordinary circuit. Its street layout, with straights with top speeds exceeding 300 km per hour and a technical section riddled with tight corners, represents one of the toughest tests on the calendar. Since Red Bull's first race there, the team has struggled to find the right balance. Unlike Monza, where low downforce favors pure speed, Azerbaijan demands a constant compromise between performance on the straights and stability in the twisty sections of the Old Town. This dilemma has always been a thorn in the side of the team, and Laurent Mekies was well aware of it before practice began. What many overlooked in the build-up was that Monza had been, in part, an exception rather than a rule. Success there was due to the updates naturally adapting to the characteristics of the Italian track. At Baku, however, any weakness of a car is starkly exposed. Laurent Mekies was aware that this track could reveal weaknesses that had been hidden elsewhere. Therefore, Friday's free practice session wasn't just another test, but a definitive test to see how far the RB21 could maintain the excitement generated weeks earlier. In this context, Max Verstappen was the center of attention, not only because he's the driver expected to overcome any technical limitations, but also because historically, Baku hasn't been the most favorable circuit for him. The first warning signs appeared as soon as the telemetry data was analyzed. Laurent Mekies, with his experience as an engineer, immediately noticed that the RB21's problems were not the result of a poor initial setup, but something much deeper. The car displayed persistent understeer in medium-speed corners, a behavior that wasn't corrected even by adjusting the settings between runs. More worrying was that this deficiency was repeated in different sectors of the circuit, making it clear that the problem lay at the very foundation of the aerodynamic design and not in superficial adjustments. During the subsequent technical meetings, Mekies explained that the RB21's front axle was operating with excessive stiffness. This caused an unbalanced load distribution that drastically limited the car's ability to respond in corner sequences like those in the Chateau sector. Every time Verstappen tried to force the line, the car lost stability and forced the driver to make constant steering corrections, compromising not only cornering speed but also the confidence needed to push hard in qualifying. Another critical issue Mekies identified was traction exiting slow corners. The lack of rear-end grip left the car exposed during the most aggressive accelerations, a particularly serious issue on a circuit like Baku, where exiting corners, is essential to avoid losing time on the long straights. Verstappen cautiously summed it up in his comments. "The car feels good, but something is missing on a fast lap." That phrase masked the real problem. Mekies knew that this lack of single-lap pace was a symptom of underlying deficiencies in the car's dynamic platform. The transparency with which Mekies spoke surprised even Red Bull's own engineers. He publicly admitted that, for much of the season, the team had been testing setups in the dark, making extreme changes without clear direction. This admission was as shocking as his findings in Baku because it meant accepting that Red Bull's technical dominance had waned and that the team wasn't fully understanding how to make the RB21 perform within its operating window. The immediate consequence of this discovery was devastating. The upgrade package that had shined at Monza wasn't translating into results in Azerbaijan. Mekies noted that the improvements seemed useful on low and medium downforce tracks, but that on a street layout with curbs, potholes, and demanding traction, the car once again revealed its most chronic weaknesses. This conclusion not only shattered the confidence built up in Italy, but also forced a rethink of how Red Bull should approach the weekend in Azerbaijan. Mekies had made it clear that the strategy of aimlessly modifying configurations had only served to mask the underlying problems, and that the RB21 had limitations that could no longer be hidden. Red Bull tried to convey calm to the outside world, but inside the garage, doubts were inevitable. Technical director Pierre Watch himself acknowledged that the car's performance was too determined by the track, a message that, far from reassuring, confirmed that the team did not have the situation under control. The team tried to justify the ups and downs with technical explanations, but the truth is that its direct rivals, especially McLaren and Ferrari, did not seem to have the same adaptation problems. This difference fueled the feeling that Red Bull was losing ground at the worst moment of the championship. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, adopted a deliberately cautious tone in his statements. He avoided talking about a crisis, but his words suggested that he was not fully confident in the car's potential. He explained that the RB21 felt good overall, but that something was missing when it came to pushing the limit. That something was what Mekies had identified as the biggest problem: the car's inability to put all its pieces together into a fast and consistent lap. Verstappen knew that with such an unstable car in the mid-sectors, and with so much loss of traction time, his chances in qualifying were diminishing, forcing him to rely on his talent in the race more than usual. Most revealing was Verstappen's acknowledgement, albeit subtly, that his room for maneuver as a driver was also limited. No matter how much he adjusted his driving style or sought out new lines, the car didn't offer him enough confidence to attack without reservation. And that lack of confidence is lethal on a circuit like Baku, where the slightest hesitation can mean losing valuable tenths of a second or even ending up in the walls. The sincerity of his statements reflected the magnitude of the problem. Red Bull could no longer hide behind its champion. The impact of Laurent Mekies' discovery was soon evident. The results of free practice starkly confirmed this. Verstappen was outside the top 5, with a gap of more than 0.6 of a second over the leaders. In modern Formula One, that gap is an eternity. What was most worrying wasn't just the lost time, but the repetitive pattern revealed by the telemetry. The RB21 was failing in the same sectors where Red Bull had historically struggled in Baku, which meant that the improvements implemented since Monza had failed to heal that wound. For a team that thrives on technical perfection, finding itself unable to solve the same problem year after year was a devastating blow. The direct consequence was a change of tone within the garage. What had previously been communicated with confidence and assurance was now expressed with caution and realism. Mekies insisted that the car was still competitive, but clarified that its performance was too dependent on the nature of the circuit. That statement sparked concern among fans and analysts. What was the point of having a fast car on certain tracks if it sank hopelessly on others? The message was interpreted as an admission that Red Bull could no longer aspire to consistent dominance. For Verstappen, the consequences were even harsher. The Dutchman understood that he would have to change his approach heading into the weekend. Taking care of tires, taking advantage of opportunities in the race, and minimizing damage became his priorities. This situation contrasted with the image of invulnerability he had projected in previous seasons, where any weekend seemed a guaranteed opportunity for victory. The simple fact of seeing Verstappen outside the pole positions in practice was interpreted as a sign that Red Bull's dominance was no longer absolute. This change in perception in the paddock is perhaps one of the most dangerous consequences. When other teams believe the giant is vulnerable, they are encouraged to attack it more aggressively. And for Red Bull as an organization, the biggest impact was psychological. For years, they had lived with the certainty that, even on their worst days, their car had a cushion that allowed them to fight for wins. Baku showed them that that cushion had disappeared. Mekies' discovery not only uncovered technical limitations, it also exposed a shift in the narrative. They were no longer the team that controlled the destiny of a championship, but one more forced to adapt and react. What happened in Baku left a clear lesson. Red Bull no longer lives in a realm of absolute certainty. Laurent Mekies' discovery wasn't a minor detail. It confirmed that the RB21 has structural limitations that will determine the season. What seemed like a one-off setup issue has become a serious warning that the team must rethink its technical approach. Max Verstappen, who once seemed immune to any adversity, now finds himself in an unprecedented situation. The Dutchman can no longer rely solely on mechanical superiority, but must instead rely on strategic intelligence and his natural talent to minimize damage. This places him on a more human level, where every mistake can be costly and every race becomes a battle that is no longer guaranteed in advance. For Red Bull, the consequences go beyond Baku. The psychological impact is profound. Knowing they no longer have control over all the variables opens the door to constant pressure every weekend. And in such a tight championship, that loss of authority could have a domino effect that benefits McLaren, who will be ready to exploit every weakness. F1, at this point, has become a balancing act where the slightest technical glitch can change the course of a title. Before I close, I want to know your opinion. Do you think Verstappen can hold his own with a car full of limitations, or are we witnessing the beginning of a new era in Formula One? Leave it in the comments and share your views with the community. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel